The city of Seattle has a wintertime and a school year eviction moratorium, which prevents landlords from evicting tenants during the winter months and tenants with children from being evicted during the school year. Now landlords are fighting back and trying to get the city council to remove those eviction protections. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. Alright, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the city of Seattle. So I've talked about how the city of Seattle has eviction moratoriums in place to prevent landlords from evicting tenants during the winter months and from evicting, parents of school children during the school year. So it's absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, that they have these protections in place, because that really limits the number of months that a landlord can evict a lot of tenants. And it puts landlords in a bad position where you are basically being treated as a social service provider, being treated as, oh yeah, you have to provide housing to people who can't afford housing. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, the city, if they are so interested in protecting those tenants, they need to step in and make sure the landlords get paid. But it's not the landlord's job to be a homeless shelter, and it's not the landlord's job to be an affordable housing provider. Otherwise, you know what? They would call us non-profits, because simply put, you can't make a profit when you are paying the tenants rent for them. So what landlords in Seattle are trying to do is they're trying to make it so that if a tenant has income and has the ability to pay their rent, they are not protected by these eviction moratoriums. And I agree with it, okay? If there is no reason why a landlord is not able to pay the rent, except for they choose not to, which is the case for a lot of people, well, guess what? They should not be protected by the law. So let me give you a good example, okay? We have a tenant and their rent is $2,000 a month, and they make six figures. They make over $100,000 a year. And I know, this is just an example, okay? I know rents in Seattle are probably more than $2,000 a month. But for the case of my example, the tenant makes six figures, is easily able to pay $2,000 a month, but they are not paying it. But they have a school-aged child, and they are, you can't evict this person right now because it's the school year and it would be wrong. And you ask yourself, well, why would a tenant who is making that much money not pay their rent? Well, let's just say that, there's a multitude of reasons, be it they have no self-control and they just spend their money in the wrong ways, and they decide that, oh, well, you know what, the landlord's the last person I'm going to pay. It could be that they have a substance abuse issue. It could be that they have a gambling issue. Who knows what the problem is, right? But if you have the ability to pay, you need to make sure that you pay your landlord. Otherwise, there's no reason for the city or the county to protect you, okay? So yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous that these protections exist in the first place, but I understand why the landlords are trying to slowly chip away at these laws, okay? But, that's one of those things where I don't think that this is actually going to pass, or they're actually going to get these exceptions granted. But who knows? Who knows? Maybe that's the case. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below, and let me know what you think. Do you believe that there should be eviction moratoriums for tenants put in place so that you can't evict them if they have school-aged children during the school year? Also, do you believe that eviction moratoriums so that you can't evict a tenant during the cold winter months, you think that's actually helping anybody? I don't think that these things are actually helping as many people as you think they are, for a multitude of reasons. First of all, the people who would be evicted during these months, are they going to actually end up, like, for example, if you end up evicted during the winter months, are you actually going to end up homeless? That's the real question, right? Are you going to end up out on the streets in the cold, freezing to death? Because I don't hear that very often. I don't hear too many homeless people freezing to homeless family frozen to death in their car. No, I've not heard that story many times, okay? I think you would be just fine if you have to temporarily live with a friend or family or whatever, or find somewhere that you can afford to pay the rent at. Okay, the other question is, does helping people stay in their housing during the school year, is that actually going to help these kids long term? Right? They say, oh, well, it's disruptive, their education gets messed up, etc., right? And my real question is their education getting messed up, and are they being disrupted because of the eviction or because they are living in an unstable structure economically, okay? And the economics of the situation, they don't get improved by not evicting these people during the school year. No, the people are still poor, they're still living on the edge, and they're still going to have to move as soon as the school year is over. So it sounds to me like you're not actually helping anything. But anyway, let me get into this article and let you know what the landlords are trying to do here. This article is coming from thestranger.com, and it says, Seattle's winter and school year eviction moratoriums could be on the chopping block. Big-time landlord asks council to exclude renters with income from historic protections. And that's the main thing that they are trying to stop right now. Stopping renters who can pay the rent but choose not to from getting these protections. So let's see what the article says. The Seattle City Council is on a crusade to undo the previous council's marginal progressive wins, from a promise to reinstate archaic anti-loitering laws to an attempt to gut the historic gig worker minimum wage. It appears the hard-fought eviction moratoriums could be next on the chopping block. Those protections keep kids and teachers housed during the school year and keep income-qualifying renters off the streets during the coldest months. So, yeah, preventing the eviction of school teachers. Keep in mind, school teachers, if you are a teacher, you have a job, okay? Which means that you should theoretically be able to pay the rent. So if you have a job, you're able to pay the rent, you choose not to, then why are you being evicted for non-payment of rent? Other than you have your financial priorities in the wrong order, okay? Or you know that those protections exist and then you're purposefully not paying your rent. That's the other thing, right? People, knowing these protections are in place, they can move into a place and then essentially have months on end of free rent until they have to move on and find somewhere else. And believe me, there are people who are so just greedy, so people who are abusing the system, and they will do such a thing. Don't believe for 1 second that you are actually protecting anyone, because the scam artists, the people who are manipulators and users, are the ones who are really taking advantage of these laws, not the people who actually need it. In an email to council member Kathy Moore and to the members of her Housing and Human Services Committee, Low Income Housing Institute Executive Director Sharon Lee asked the council to modify the city's winter and school year eviction moratoriums to exclude people with income who decide not to pay. Lee told The Stranger that LIHI supports strong tenant protections and called the exclusion of renters with income a narrow exception to the moratoriums, not a repeal. Now, it should tell you something right there, right? They said that the person asking for this is the members of her Housing and Human Services Committee, Low Income Housing Institute Executive Director. Okay? So to me, that sounds like a nonprofit. Okay? Why is a nonprofit asking for an exception to this rule? This isn't a for-profit landlord here. This is somebody who, gets government money, etc. Because, simply put, they have created such an issue with these tenants who are able to pay, who are choosing not to, that it is hurting the nonprofit even, okay? And so, yeah, that should tell you right there that this is a huge, huge issue. So, yeah, I feel like they passed this law. They didn't really think about the implications, what these scammers were going to do when this law was passed. Because as soon as the scammers found out about this law, they stopped paying the rent. And, a lot of landlords, they fell into the hole, including these non-profit landlords. Lee is not some random commenter the council could brush off. LIHI is a major affordable housing contractor with the city and by far the most prolific tiny shelter village developer in the region. I asked the Housing Development Consortium, an umbrella organization that represents more than 200 members, including LIHI, about the popularity of Lee's proposal among their members. HDC did not respond. So yeah, this is sounds like a major affordable housing contractor. And to me, that tells you right there that, hey, yeah, they're going to have to really listen to this, okay? When it comes down to it, the numbers, they speak for themselves. We got too many tenants who are can't be evicted and who are not paying their rent. That is it. It's pretty simple. Too many. Because if this was just a few people, do you really think that these major developers, these major nonprofits would be stepping in there and saying, "Hey, please repeal this part of the law because we are dying here"? No, of course not. But yeah, they're pretty much going to be forced to change this. Yeah, otherwise, landlords are going to be going bankrupt. Okay, landlords are already going bankrupt up in Seattle. And it doesn't surprise me one bit that a city council that has literal socialists, people who proudly claim that they are socialists, there are members of the city council who proudly proclaim they are socialist, okay? It doesn't surprise me one bit that they would pass stupid laws like this. So, yeah, I'm going to put a link to this article in the description down below. Let me know what you think. Do you think these wintertime eviction moratoriums and school year eviction moratoriums, do you think they're a good idea? Do you think this was going too far, okay? Do you think that they're actually going to modify these laws or repeal them at some point in time? Just let me know what you think in the comments.